Alright, so tonight's lesson is lesson 102, and we are subtracting decimal numbers using zeros. And I know this is something that we pretty much do every day when we have to do Math Mondays or worksheets when we do math rotations, but we're just going to have a lesson on it to make sure that we fully understand the reasons behind why we add a zero when we're trying to subtract. So, for some subtraction problems, we need to add decimal places to perform the subtraction. If we subtract, 0.23 from 0.4 or 4/10 and 23 hundredths, there's an empty spot right here, okay? And it's an empty place in the problem. So if you happen to forget how to subtract, you might not even line up your decimals, you might end up doing the problem wrong. So first things first, when you're subtracting with decimals, always line up your decimal point. Okay, so we got that. Now, we're going to go ahead and fill in that empty spot with a zero. And if you remember, we can add as many zeros as we want behind that decimal point because we're basically saying we have no hundredths in this column. We have no thousandths. So I could add on more zeros, but to make my problem even, I'm going to add a zero in that place filler right there. So now this becomes a normal subtraction problem. Okay, 0 minus 3. I'm going to go over to the 4, make this a 3, make this a 10. 10 minus 3. Okay, 7. And then I'm going to subtract 3 minus 2, 1, bring down my decimal point, and 0. So then my answer is 17 hundredths. Alright, now you do have to write down the whole problem. I know it is pretty wordy, so sorry. But it says, a brand X computer completed a task in 4/10 of a second. A brand Y computer completed the same task in 0.231 or 231 thousandths. Fewer seconds. What length of time did brand Y computer take to complete the task? Okay, so we have brand X, and then brand Y computer completed it faster by 0.231 seconds, or 231 thousandths of a second. Okay, so we're going to have to do a subtraction problem here. So we're trying to find out how fast did brand Y take to complete that task. So I'm going to take make sure I line up my decimal point, so I have my 0.4, my 4/10, okay, and then I'm going to subtract 231 thousandths from my 4/10, because I'm trying to find out how long it took brand Y, and it was this much faster. Okay, so if I have my subtraction problem, alright, looks good. But now, to make it even, I need to add those zeros, so now I can subtract from numbers. It makes more sense, because you're going to have to borrow from the 4, and you're going to have to make the 0 a 10, and then a 9. So if you didn't have a number there, it would be really hard to actually do the problem. So you have to put in those zeros when you're doing subtraction. Okay, so now, I'm going to, can't do 0 minus 1, so I'm going to go all the way over here, make this a 3, make this a 9, and then make that a 10. 10 minus 1, 9. 9 minus 3, 6. 3 minus 2, 1. Bring down my decimal point. And my unit would be seconds. So brand Y computer completed the task in 169 thousandths of a second. And brand X completed it in 4/10 of a second. So brand Y was 231 thousandths of a second faster. Alright, and now the second one. Okay, Rachel's house is 3 kilometers away from Jackie's house. Rachel has walked 1 23 hundredths of a kilometer. How far does Rachel still have to walk? Alright, so she has walked 1 23 hundredths, and she has to go 3 kilometers. So now we're kind of dealing with whole numbers and decimal numbers, okay? So I'm going to write 3 kilometers. Remember, when we have a whole number, there really is a decimal point, but a 0 behind it, just so I can line up my decimal points. And then she's walked so far 1 23 hundredths. So I'm going to be doing a subtraction problem here. But again, remember, there is a hole right here. It's empty. I'm going to go ahead and put my 0 in there. Okay, and now I can do normal subtraction. So I'm going to take my 3, I'm going to make it a 2, make my 0 a 9, and this last one a 10. 10 minus 3, 7, 9 minus 2, 7, 2 minus 1, 1. Don't forget to drop your decimal point. So she still has 1 77 hundredths to walk of a kilometer. Alright, and the last problem. In 2004, the land around Loretto, Texas was 83.44 or 44 hundredths of a mile. In 1993, the land area was 44 square miles. Between 1993 and 2004, the city of Loretto added about how many square miles? Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to estimate, okay? So basically, we're going to pick kind of two compatible numbers and work this together. So let's see. 83 is, and we have, our numbers are 44 and 83 and 44 hundredths. What two numbers could work well together? We don't even actually have to change one of them. But 83 is almost 84. And then we have 44. So those are two numbers that will work well when we're subtracting. So I'm just going to, even though this is not a half, you know how our number is 5 to help us round up. Actually, I'd round this down to 83. But if we're dealing with compatible numbers, I can make this an 84 and this keep this to 44 and still work with those two numbers. So I would take 84 square miles and subtract 44 square miles, and I would get simple, you can do this in your head, 40 square miles as my answer. So about 40 square miles. Now, not all the time will you be able to use compatible numbers to subtract. Most of the time they're going to ask you, but what I did notice is they said about. That was the key word that let us know that we could find about and use compatible numbers to subtract. We're finding about how many square miles. It didn't say exactly how many, it said about. So here's your lesson practice. Just 3 problems.